Hello there. The state tried to silence her, but they failed, and now she's free to tell her story. Now compare what nearly happened to her to the Huw Edwards case, and many like it. This shows you exactly what the establishment thinks about crimes against children compared to online hurty words crime. Online hurty words crimes brought about by a lack of transparency where the identity of perpetrators of certain crimes, like in the Southport case, are concerned. A lack of transparency that leaves an information vacuum. An information vacuum that leaves it wide open for misinformation to fill. And in one of the latest information vacuums, Bernadette Spofforth, known as Bernie, published a copied tweet talking about the identity of the Southport perpetrator, also saying, "If this was true," and then deleting the post when she found out it was false. Remember that? But the authorities immediately sent round 3 police cars and a meat wagon to scoop her into jail anyway, trying to pin the blame of starting a riot on her. Probably thinking that this was the time to make an example of those social media types they took issue with. And when Bernie did eventually get bail, the conditions were so onerous that she was unable to say a word. She could not defend herself in public. But now she's been released with no further action to be taken, she can defend herself and has published a video on X, which I encourage you all to watch in its entirety. And thankfully, the Free Speech Union had her back, and in a tweet earlier today they said, "We're delighted the police have decided to take no further action against our member Bernie Spofforth, who never should have been arrested in the first place. Had she been prosecuted, we would have paid for her legal defence." But had she been browbeaten into pleading guilty, as many of the others did in seemingly questionable circumstances, then it might have meant a completely unjustified stretch inside for her. And as she says in the video, this could happen to anyone, and the cost of no further action has been very high for her indeed. The process has been the punishment. And it affected many, many other people because they self-censored after hearing what had happened to her. But while she was worried sick over one tweet, only 20% of those who do a Huw Edwards get actual jail time. Yes, the Sun exposed this, calling it rotten justice. The astonishing leniency towards Huw Edwards exposes a 2-tier justice system which must be rebuilt. Now that's putting it mildly. The Sun says that it's not just the suspicion that convicted celebrities get better treatment than proletarian criminals, as if the establishment considers their public disgrace as punishment enough. It is that 4 out of 5 of those who do a Huw Edwards, regardless of background, dodge jail for having such disgusting images as Edwards did. 80% of them dodge jail. This is what the state does. Now, according to the Royal United Services Institute, there has been a rapid acceleration in such activity, and it refers to it as a new and emerging threat. And the NSPCC says there has been a 25% increase in Huw Edwards-style images in the year 2022 to 2023. A fast-rising, direct and imminent threat to our offspring. But that's not how the courts, which constitute a cornerstone of the establishment, are treating that crime, is it? And look at that other cornerstone of the establishment, the BBC, and its ongoing brushes with the people engaged in this type of thing. Well, with a statue like that over its front porch, and the latest getting paid 200 grand awaiting an investigation outcome, then no jail time living on a 300 grand a year pension. And then consider how long it takes to even get them arrested. No wonder grooming gangs have been so successful over years and decades. It might not just be a "don't arrest them because it might be racist" type of thing after all. Think about it. But a tweet misidentifying a perpetrator with the words "if this is true" alongside it is worthy of instant arrest. Actually more like instant bullying to discourage others. How about discouraging the production of these foul images by these foul people? And discouraging grooming gangs, knife crime and shoplifting while you're at it? No, we've seen the establishment in action, and the biggest crime by far is now dissent. And now for a right royal rant on this subject. Richard.
That's it. It's done. Thanks to the choice sentencing over the past few months by a few judges in Britain. Yes, thanks to them, we now know where we the people stand in the eyes of His Majesty, His Majesty's justice system, and His Majesty's government. In other words, we now know where we stand in the eyes of King Charles and his cronies, because we now know the values of the establishment and the state. So what is this great revelatory event that has given such insight into the values of the establishment, I hear you cry? Well, we live in a society where many of those who commit acts of the Jimmy Savile nature do not get to go to jail, but a few hurty words by an old lady on social media can result in, it has resulted in an old lady being promptly sent to jail. So we are to assume that the justice system, which has His Majesty's stamp of approval all over it and is legitimised by His Majesty, is appropriating justice according to the morals and values held by King Charles. I mean, if the courts are allowing Savile types to get away with non-custodial sentences for hideous crimes, whilst someone who shares a stupid meme on Facebook gets banned and banged up, then one must assume His Majesty must believe Savile types are far less evil than those that post stupid things on social media. And thus the Savile types, in the mind of King Charles, I am sure, deserve sentences with a much lesser severity to those given to a granny who posted a daft post on Facebook after a few sherries. What other conclusion can one reach other than His Majesty must be in full approval of the values which shape the sentencing of his judges? Otherwise, his judiciary would be dishing out very different sentences. Am I missing something here? Could it be that King Charles does not hold the same moral values as his judiciary and simply de facto rubber stamps them by his role as constitutional monarch, which legitimises his justice system? Does it not bother you, Your Majesty, that there are political prisoners in jail in this country who are there because your justice system put them there, whilst evil men have been released early and other evil men entirely evade jail time at all? Your Majesty, it may have escaped your attention, what with all the garden parties and Daffos meetings you have to attend, but there are times when you really do need to be king, and where sitting back and remaining silent is not an option. And this is one of those times. When it came to, the Great Reset and climate change, you spoke out continuously. Yet when it comes to gross injustices within Britain and the suffering of your people through unjust sentencing and many other things, you remain silent there. Why? You need to stand up now and say, no, not in my name, or forever hold your peace. We, the British people, await your response, Your Majesty. Or are you preparing to sit back and allow the judiciary and this government and justice system to do evil in your name? Are you happy with that? Okay. Or am I wrong and a constitutional monarch remains silent and is prepared to be the figurehead of evil? Is that how it works? Sorry to say, but the buck lies with you, Your Majesty. Be a king and stand up for your people. Stand up for the Christian faith before it's too late. Or there is a good chance you will end the monarchy. You have made some questionable friends and done some questionable things, that's for sure. But no man is irredeemable. So get off your arse, forget your leaky fucking pens, and be the king that Britain needs, wants, and deserves. Or get out the way so we can allow a real king to come forward, and not one necessarily of your lineage. Your Majesty, your subjects are frightened. Elderly people who have waved the Union flag for both yourself and your mother are frightened to walk the streets, and many will die because of the decisions made by your government. They need a king, or are you going to turn your back on them in their hour of need? I understand that you are not well, and if you are not up to the task, then pass the throne over to someone who can deal with this. Britain deserves better. It's your choice, Your Majesty.